Okay, I'm live again. All right, and my video is working. Sorry, everything got screwed up. I started getting 1,000 messages and a phone call. So for people that were watching before, I was so glad you were here. I had viewers. I was talking, and I don't know how to splice these together. I guess maybe one day I'll figure that out. Anyway, I have 0 viewers now, so I'm talking again as though I was here. Anyway, I'm gonna keep going because I had some stuff I wanted to say this morning. And I'm sorry that I ended abruptly on my last stream because technical issues and incoming messages and a phone call all at once. I just couldn't handle it. And hey, Jess. Hey, Trees. Good to see you. I was doing a live stream 10 minutes ago and abruptly ended it when I started getting inundated with unexpected text messages, emails, and a phone call all at once, and was having tech issues with my camera. So I decided to start it up again. Jess, it's so good to see you. Yeah, so now I have the tech issues again. My camera keeps turning itself off, and I don't know what's going on. I have no idea why it does this. But hey, Top, welcome back. Top was here seeing me totally fuck up my my program earlier. And I started talking about, how it is that people make these crazy conclusions. Hey, and What the Beck is here. Majestic Beck was here in the last stream, and now we got What the Beck. Maybe we get two Becks together. It's so good to see you, Beck. It's so good to see everybody. And Trees, if people haven't been paying attention to Trees has been on a tear. Oh, you got to go to bed, Holly? Okay, Holly, it's great. Thanks for coming by. Go to sleep, get some rest. Good to see you, Holly. And Trees has been doing paintings, I believe, and they've been beautiful, wonderful paintings of trees and other things in the tree realm. And if you look at Trees did a post this morning, they are Trees. You're living in a winter wonderland, I think, this morning, which is pretty much what I got. Except that people around here just expect that. They're watercolor paintings. Yes. Okay. I assumed they were watercolor, but I didn't want to presume the media without thinking about it. And I think you've been sharing some on Discord as well. So if you're not hanging out with Trees on YouTube or Discord, you need to fix that. I don't know how you're going to fix it, but you need to fix that. So this was my welcome to 2025 stream. I've been I'm changing jobs, so I'm home today. And it was kind of unexpected to be home today this week, but this is what's going on. You want to hang out with Trees, yes. You know what? And I think Jess has hung out with Trees. I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty sure that Jess met up with Trees and Joe and some other people for a cool Kentucky atheist type hang. And you know what? I might have to get down to Kentucky myself. And Jess, I've been to your neighborhood a few times before the end of the year, before the Christmas holidays started and everything slowed down at work. I was out in your neighborhood more times than I could count, but there was no way I was ever going to be able to see you. And you probably wouldn't want to see me anyway because I'm kind of ugly. And I guess that's why I broke my camera. That's how it came. Protest in July. Yeah, so you're doing the Ken's arc there, right? The ham arc. Yeah, that I think that's good. And I've heard Joe talking about that. And yeah, well, you know what, Jess, we're gonna get together. Jess and I've been threatening to meet up and introduce our families and stuff and let the kids hang out. That may happen. That probably won't be like a live streamed event or anything. I think we'll keep our private lives private. But yeah, no, it was really, really cool to get to know Jess over the last, I guess, a year or more online. And yeah, Jess did a great fill in for Joe with, I'm not picking on, me. Don't worry about it, Beck. I got lots of bad things to say about myself, but no, I'm rethinking life right now. I'm rethinking life for myself because now that I'm gonna move to a different company and do something different, it makes me think about like how much different it is, and it makes me think about how diverse it is. So I'm not gonna talk about trucking, because if I do that, I'll just talk about trucking all day. But I've also been thinking about other things I'm doing, like my fellowship work that I did last year. It wrapped up officially in December. I started to say we're gonna try to extend that out and do a couple more pieces to add to our project. I'm working on talking to people about that this week, and yeah. Oh, you gave Jess's offspring a pretty fossil. That is really cool. My son is huge fan. I know you will, Beck. And you know what, Beck? I'll set one up where we'll do that. So I've got lots of great announcements about my channel. Lots of cool stuff is going to come up in the next little bit, because I don't know how it'll get done, because of course changing jobs always is going to be like come with some unexpected unknowns, right? So I don't know what my schedule will be. I don't know what like my shift will be, because I don't have a job that I'm going to yet. I'm looking at a couple of options, so I'm going to change things up. It's going to be great, but everything will be different, right? So I don't know if I'll be working Monday to Friday still. I don't know if I'll be working regionally or longer haul or mostly local. I don't know. I haven't found the position yet. I've looked at a few, and I've put my name in the ring for a couple, but I'm gonna figure it out. I got a couple ideas in mind, and I do have some diversity in my skills, so I'm gonna try to not harp on that. It's on my mind because I've been thinking about it, but it makes me think about like all the things I've been doing with my life that are not trucking, because I'm Al Trucker, so trucking is the first thing that comes to mind. And when I wake up in the morning, the first thing I'm thinking about is coffee, getting a shower, putting my boots on, and getting in the truck. So. That's been my life for a long time. I hope my audio is okay, even though my camera keeps cutting out. And so as you say, Beck, you'll come in and talk trucking. So Beck, I'd love to have you join me for a trucking chat. I think we should get a few of our trucking friends together. There's quite a few truckers in the community, and we should have a big trucking powwow. It tends to turn people off, but yeah, we'll do that. So the 69 sub special ended up not happening, mostly because I can't organize much of anything. I have a very rude saying that goes with that, and since my channel is not for children, I'm going to say it. This is an old expression that I've heard. It's not necessarily politically correct, but the expression is you couldn't organize a blowjob in a whorehouse. And that is something I've heard people say for years. And I guess we get where that's coming from. No offense intended to anybody in particular, other than the people that are that disorganized, which is me. I am that disorganized. I think people know that I probably have ADHD. I'm going to get tested for that hopefully this year. It's going to be great when they tell me I have ADHD instead of everyone that isn't a doctor telling me I have ADHD, because then we'll know what everybody suspected all along. I think people that hear me talk know that I jump around all over the place and I have crazy thoughts of many types. But I'm getting very close to 169 subs, and I missed having a 100 sub special. I missed having a 69 sub special, so I'm going to have a 169 sub special, and I think I was at 163 the last time I looked at it. And so if I can get 6 more people to subscribe to my channel in the next week or two, I will be hosting at some point. I haven't scheduled it. I'm trying to get some favorite YouTubers of the community to come and hang out, and obviously people like Beck would be welcome. Both Becks would be welcome. Trees would be welcome. Jess would be welcome. And I was trying to say before I distracted myself with my own voice. Jess did a great job hosting trivia over at Joe's, and Joe has unfortunately lost a family member, and I don't know what his schedule is right now. I'm not bugging him about it, but hopefully Kentucky Atheist will be back with Joe. But having Jess there filling in was great. I loved watching the trivia. I was roasting a turkey at the time, and I couldn't do any of the trivia playing. I would have loved to do that. And I was yelling at my phone the whole time, and my family, I was listening on headphones and yelling at my phone what the answers were. And I think I would have gotten like 75% on the trivia. I did pretty well on most of the ones I was yelling. But yeah, it was fun. And my family thought I was insane. So I was talking about my friend who does scientific research and how carefully she works on doing islet research. And she was talking about that just briefly, just in conversation, because, we were having conversation about a scientific paper that we're going to work on in our work. And I can't let the cat out of the bag about that too much, but I'm working on another paper. Hey, Zach, good to see you. Thanks for coming by. It's good to see you. So I'm gonna move on to the thing I was talking to Dr. Tapp about. This is I started talking about this. I was saying hello to new people, and in the old stream, the one that I fucked up, we were having a great time. Welcome, Zach, to the disorganized life of Al Trucker. So what I was doing was the other day, Dr. Tapp was at work with no one else there because it was holiday time. He went in because he wanted to get ahead of some stuff, and he showed me a couple of pictures, and we had a phone chat, and we had an online chat, like a text chat, and we were going back and forth on photos. And he was showing me some of the very precision instruments they work with, which I'd already seen some pictures of his stuff. It's pretty cool. They do this cold atom. I think cold atom interferometry is part of what they do. But they do a lot of tests on strontium gas being super cooled. And there's a show that I did with Dr. Tapp well over a year ago. It was Thanksgiving, I think, of 2023, and we went through how he does this. And I should really clip that down to like a short thing where we just get into the meat of the matter. But the work he does is really cool because they actually use lasers that are finely tuned to a certain wavelength to actually slow down strontium atoms to get them to be very close to, but not quite 0 Kelvin. And the apparatus they use for that is actually a series of different pieces they use. And those lasers involved, there's vacuum tubes involved, and all sorts of really cool things. But also there's an optical element, and they have the special optics that are finely tuned so they can finally calibrate the instrument. And they also have done some amazing work, and they've published this work on actually how to set up the experiment to get the best results, because more than one lab around the world is working on this same kind of research. It's the same style of research. They may not be finding the exact same thing. They may not be doing the exact same experiment. In some cases, they might be, redoing an experiment for scientific veracity. But a lot of times what they're also doing is making new discoveries about what happens. It's used in gravity research, for instance. Trying to measure gravity in different places is one of the uses for cold atom interferometry that I know of. It also is a great set of experiments that help with quantum physics proofs. Proof is not the right word, but verifying what we know about quantum physics and discovering new things. It's amazing what you can learn about things. And this is what Dr. Tapp does for a living, is he learns and works on learning new things about atoms and lasers and other things, and also about programming computers. It's very amazing stuff. It's extremely precise. It's extremely well thought out. And in his he's a PhD because he already has one, but he's working himself with his own PhD under the supervision of other people with PhDs and just way more decades of experience doing similar work or work that led up to this. And then he has younger people working alongside him, or even technically maybe under him in terms of their hierarchy, but that people that are working on getting a PhD who are helping with this, that already are quite erudite in the subject. It's pretty amazing. They have a team of people. They're working on this one little box full of atoms. That's not really what it is, but I've enjoyed being friends with Vandy and having chats with him about this. I've learned a lot about science, but also about the scientific method, which is something that keeps getting called into question. And I want to bring up my I consider him a friend. I hope he considers me the same. Dr. Parks, Professor Rob Parks, is a PhD at I am not thinking of the university he's at right now. It'll probably come to me. I think he's somewhere. I feel like he's somewhere on the East Coast, but I'm probably forgetting where he is. I know he's in the USA. It'll come to me. But Professor Parks does astronomical and physics teaching and observations. So they have an observatory. He's an astronomer, and he's a physicist, and he teaches those as a professor at the university he works at. But he also makes new discoveries, and he's been doing some amazing work. And if you're not sub to Professor Parks, please check him out. Professor Parks, PhD. I'm not doing a good job at modding myself here and putting links up, but I just want to bring that to people's attention, that's out there, and it's really cool. He's taking a telescope he bought last year. He set it up, and he's taking regular pictures of sunspots, I guess, on the days when he has good views of it, and can actually do that with a special filter, and it's amazing. And I think what'll end up happening is he'll have a tremendous set of photos eventually that show the progression over the course of many weeks, months, and then year or more of the progression of the sun as we go around the sun, rotating on our axis. And that brings me up to like what got me talking about this in the first place, is because there's this whole conversation with the flat Earth community where they're so sure of everything, and then they go do this experiment down in Antarctica where they, actually, it's not just an experiment. It's not the final experiment, which is what Will Duffy called it. He's the gentleman that organized it. I believe he's a pastor, and I think he's based in Colorado. I could be wrong about that. Colorado is a beautiful state. I was there, I guess not last year, the year before, back in 2023. Beautiful place. Great place to travel to. And we saw some cool stuff there. But before I get way off track, Will Duffy organized this project. They went and looked at this final experiment, and then the flat Earth community are losing their minds because, as a bunch of people have pointed out, I think one of the best ones is Bob the Science Guy has at the beginning of every show he does, on this flat Earth thing, he plays like a little reel of a bunch of the main players in the flat Earth grift community. I'm going to call it a grift because, like, I don't know what else it would be. Like, I mean, you wouldn't do this if you weren't seriously suggesting that people pay you money to tell them lies, because that seems to be what's going on. So in this conversation, like, Professor Parks actually posted a wonderful video about the scientific method. The people that are railing against the scientific method keep bringing up these very, very simplistic ideas that, you have to have an independent variable, dependent variable, etc. And it had me thinking, and I Can Science That is another great creator who was having a conversation basically through chat with Professor Parks, and I was putting in my 2 cents worth as a truck driver. But I feel like I'm a science-minded individual, and I would very much like to study astrophysics and cosmology. And of course, I'm thinking about what I'm going to get in my life as I get older. Like, I probably won't be able to do trucking for more than another 15, 20 years. So, maybe after that, I'll be able to study cosmology and do something a little bit less physical in my retirement. But I won't stop being interested in it in the meantime. So one thing I pointed out in this conversation is, like, they're asking for these independent and dependent variables, and it's a great point that you want to, if you're making an observation, you want to do something that changes something about what's going on. Oh yes, Professor Parks is a theist. It is a little bit surprising because many science folks are not theists, but yes, Professor Parks is a theist, and I respect that he has his beliefs in religion and God and whatnot. That's he leaves it out of his conversations about science for the most part. I don't know how he works that out exactly. He's spoken about it a few times, and I have a related thing to say about that. But what I'll do is I'll try to wrap up this science conversation to say that I pointed out that sometimes they look at the flat Earth community, they look at things way too simplistically, and they demand these variables, and people like Nathan Oakley won't even let you say what they are. He just says you don't have them. He repeats the same talking points over and over again, and yelling things loudly doesn't make them true. I can yell things loudly. I'm loud as fuck. Just ask anyone in my family. I'm loud as fuck when I'm whispering. A very difficult problem to have. So I'm going to say that what I suggested in this conversation, and I'd like people to tell me what they think about this. But I said, you could do an experiment where you observe the same region of space with two different scientific instruments. One of them would be like, say, a set of binoculars, which is great for like looking at the moon or something. Binoculars can be great for looking at things that are far away. And, a decent set of binoculars, you can look at the moon on a clear night and get a pretty good view if it's not, there's not too much atmospheric disturbance and whatnot. They work, and you can use a small telescope. But let's use my example of binoculars, because people might own binoculars for more than one reason, like hunting, etc. Owning a telescope is usually kind of wrapped up into astronomy type work. So I'm going to use something that's a little bit more general. And so you could look at a region of space. You could pick a region of space, and you could try to find out, what is the James Webb Space Telescope looking at in space that very same day, at that very same time, and line yourself up and say, okay, you might have to travel to a particular place to look at that region at nighttime when you could actually see something. You could stare at it for, pick the amount of time the James Webb Space Telescope looks at it for. But you just look at it with your human eyes. Hold the binoculars up. Yeah, trees. Spotting scope would work. Yeah, there's another good example of a tool that has more than one use. Spotting scope would be used mostly in hunting. Some of them have rangefinders and stuff on them too. They're pretty cool. But they'd be used terrestrially on relatively short distances when comparing to like the moon and Jupiter, etc. But let's just say we look at the same area of space, and we, let's say, I don't know enough about the James Webb Space Telescope, but let's say it focuses on an area for 3 straight hours. So we do the same thing. We set up a blanket. We got a picnic basket there. We hire somebody to feed us grapes. I don't fucking know. But we sit there, we lay on our backs, and we look up at the sky through this scope. And we don't record it on a phone or anything. We just look with our human eyes. And the James Webb Space Telescope looks at the same region of space for the same 3-hour period. This is just for example. And we both, we get together with the James Webb people, and we note down what we saw. And then, if I'm the one operating the binoculars, because obviously nobody's going to let me operate the James Webb Space Telescope, I'll just confirm, okay, I was looking at this region. There are star charts and things we could use to make sure we're looking at the same place. So we've done our verification. We're looking at the same place. So I note down that I think I saw a star at one point, or it might have been an airplane or something. A light flickered. So I'll write that down. I saw this light flickered. I saw it was at night, so I saw it at 12:03 a.m. I saw a flicker of light. And the James Webb Space people just upload all this fucking data and then print out this thing and say, look at this. And there's this amazing light show of the universe after the 3 hours of observing that same region of space. Well, have we done a scientific experiment here? Have we changed a variable to find out something interesting? Is this an experiment? I say yes. And the variable we had was the instrument used to observe space. In one case, the instrument, which is probably not the right one, we didn't see much. We saw a couple of lights flicker. We're not really sure what they were. We weren't able to identify exactly what we were looking at. Might have been a star, might have been some other thing, might have been something like an airplane flew by quickly and passed us, and we didn't see it clearly enough to know. That's I'll have to check that song. I think I've heard that one. Trees, because I used to listen to Black Sabbath a bit when I was younger, but I have to check that one out specifically. So coming back to my ramble here, I pointed out, I said, why isn't that that's a perfectly reasonable variable? If you look at a region of space, you say, if I look with binoculars, I see basically fuck all. And if I look with the James Webb Space Telescope, I find things that I didn't know were there, that no astronomer knew were there, that we didn't even know we could see, but we suspected we could get more because we've had other telescopes. As we've increased the sensitivity and the types of receptors and the type of resolution that we are able to get interpreted by photon receptors on something like the James Webb Telescope. And I find photons to be one of the most amazing pieces of science that we've figured out. It's one of the things that, like, it tickles my brain, if you will, in terms of making it feel good and want to find out more. I find photons fascinating, individually and together. They blow my mind because they travel for so long. They travel such far distances and tell us things that happened so long ago and so far away, but they don't stop coming. It's pretty amazing. So I think that's a pretty good variable. You know, if we change the instrument but look at the exact same area of space for the exact same period of time at the exact same time of night, we see different things. And there's a number of reasons why. One of the reasons why is that the James Webb Space Telescope uses something completely different to detect objects in space. It's not binoculars. Hey, Stephanie Helms, welcome. And Stephanie, congratulations on your recent milestone coming into 2025 with 500 subs on your Transpositions channel. And so great to see you. And Cosmic Kyle, astrophotography mentioned. Yes, Cosmic Kyle. I was just saying that I think a reasonable experiment could be done in astronomy. The reason I brought up astronomy is because Professor Parks was the person talking about it. Is just like, because flat Earth people and other science deniers say, well, that's just an observation. But, you know, if we make two observations with two different things, we've concluded something, right? We can say, hey, if you just look at an area of space that seems dark and empty with binoculars, it will continue to seem dark and empty no matter how long you look at it for with human eyes. But if you take a much more sophisticated implement and put it in space where we don't have atmospheric disruptions, and if we put receptors on it, you can see photons that are in ranges that aren't in human eyesight's possibility, and we can focus it with computers and things to make sure we don't lose track of our target, and they're so far away, and we let that happen for a certain amount of time, we can see some interesting fucking shit. And so we can make a couple of conclusions. One is that the James Webb Space Telescope is a very successful implement, and far surpasses just basic optics and the human eye. I think that's one thing you could determine. That's something. If you did it a bunch of times, I think, and got the same result, I think you could easily say it's quite well attested that it's a more sophisticated and successful telescope, right? But you could just see so many things. Yeah. And here, so Cosmic Kyle, and welcome, Cosmic Kyle. I should probably watch your content more because it sounds like you've been seeing some cool stuff. I can put this up on the screen, right? My camera died twice. I stopped my show earlier because of tech problems and a sudden flurry of activity on my phone, including a phone call for an appointment I have this afternoon that needed to be confirmed, and a whole bunch of text messages from my wife and other people telling me a bunch of shit I needed to know. So here we are. So recently caught a galaxy 300 million light years away. Those photons traveled from before the dinosaurs entered my scope and to my eyes. It's incredible. And Cosmic Kyle, that is fucking incredible. And That's only 300 million light years away, and only 300 million years in the past. I believe the current estimates are up in. Oh yeah, here. Look at this. Look at trees as being an awesome mod. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So yeah, I'm gonna have to check that out. I'm gonna go back and watch this and get that. But that's there. And yeah, and I was, this is something that could be done. Now, Professor Parks, I don't believe operates at James Webb Space Telescope. He uses terrestrial optics, but he uses ones that are far more sophisticated than binoculars. And there's just amazing shit people can find out by making observations. And if you can make multiple observations with multiple things, you could find out some interesting shit. And I also think this is something I'd really like to point out to people, especially flirfs that might actually come and watch this. I doubt that they will. I don't think flirfs appreciate my content too much. But if you think about it and don't just buy the garbage from the Nathans of the world and from the grifters and the people that just want you to send them money to tell them garbage. Oh, and yes, thank you. Then this is Stephanie Helms. Has the transposition show. Stephanie has her own channel as well. And I don't know if YouTube hasn't been telling me about the shows so much, but I did see a couple come up when I was asleep a couple of weeks ago. And so, Stephanie, if you've been doing more content, I don't think my notifications are coming in. But I've also been very busy and tied up for a while. Quasar located 12 billion light years out. That's awesome, Kyle. That is awesome. So, yes, Stephanie's got some great programming, but the Transpositions Network, which I mentioned earlier, I'll mention it again, has Bree from HiveSci is on it. Ember, she's on it as well, from Better Than Ember. Stephanie Helms is on from, is it Steffi Cat? I can't remember, Stephanie, if I have the right thing, or I can't remember if you're on a Steffi Cat or Stephanie Helms. But if I know she's on YouTube, but also on the Transpositions, you'll see her, and you have Dr. Ben on there, I believe, and there's another lady who does the sports, and I don't want to misremember her name. Oh man, I'm blanking on it. And my biggest problem is I don't know her as well from before the transposition, so her name isn't coming to my mind. I feel like it's something like Carlene or Charlene, but I'm sure I have it wrong. And so maybe, Stephanie, if you're still here and you don't mind putting the name in there, or even putting the names of all, just type in a message if you're able to. Type in a message of the host that people might know from elsewhere. Kaylee, you know what? I can't believe it. Kaylee Chardonnay. There you go. Man, I'm bad with names, and yes, and I should not remember that name for a very good reason. It's Callie. It's Callie though, not Kaylee. It's Callie. It's Callie Chardonnay. Okay, I hope I'm reading that right. I'm bad with pronunciations, and my eyes aren't working, and my camera's not working. So this science conversation had me thinking, you know what, it's Carly. Yes, okay, thank you so much, Trees, for making, yes, okay, Carly. I gotta watch the show more. I've been doing so many things that aren't watching YouTube. That has been good and bad. It's been good because I've been spending some time with my family on the holiday time. I've been doing a lot of thinking. I've been doing a little bit of writing, and I've been pumping out some music recently. So I wanted to bring people's attention to that. If you are a flat earther, or you are a grifting theist of the evangelical kind who's trying to steal people's money in the name of Jesus, you will not appreciate my most recent drops of songs, because they are basically kind of taking the piss out of those concepts. And I want to make it clear that I have nothing against people that are religious. Oh, thank you. Okay, so this is wonderful, Stephanie. I'm going to put we have guests on. You have guests on there as well. So I'm gonna read this properly for people, especially people watching in the future. I suspect a lot of the people watching now are familiar because I recognize this. Okay, so we have Bree McCoon, I think is the correct pronunciation. But Bree, people know from Hiveside. Ember Belrad, people know from Better Than Ember. Carly Chardonnay Webb and Stephanie Helms. So you're the main ones, and you've had quite a few guests. So when I've seen Dr. Ben, I think on there, that's he's a guest, not a regular host. Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Stephanie. I appreciate the clarification. Because I often, when I do come by, I often end up coming by for 5 or 10, 15 minutes and then have something else come up in my life. And I lose the plot of what's going on. That's how I watch a lot of YouTube these days. And I'm finding it's kind of annoying because the only time I ever listen to shows start to finish is when I'm going to bed, and sort of as I go to sleep, I'll listen to like a full hour of a show without distraction because I just lay there and listen to what people are saying. And if the show isn't on when I'm going to bed, that is not what I get. I get distracted by, I don't know. I guess my ADHD does this to me, but like I get notifications on the stuff I do finally get notifications on, and I'll go and check that out, and then I get distracted by that. And I try to be a friend and supporter of everybody, and I end up not fully seeing everybody's content. It was maybe not the best way to do it, but at the same time, getting these snippets of what people are putting out gets my brain working a lot. And so in the last number of months, I've written lyrics for these songs, and people that have heard me sing know that I should not be singing. That's something that's been made clear to me by a number of people, despite the fact that people come up to me in public all the time and say, your voice is amazing, you should be on the radio. And apparently they don't mean as a singer. I think they mean as a bingo card like that. So, and I think my voice, to me, right now, my voice sounds like really worn out and tired today. So probably wouldn't come through. I don't know that it comes through ever. I honestly, when I listen to myself back on any YouTube recordings, I don't hear it. And I don't know if that's because of the recording equipment and the audio quality I have or something else. But I found this Suno app and website that's great. And Stephanie's telling us something new. I'm going to put this up there. These are some of the people that we see there. Yes, and I have definitely seen Ben and Arden there. Luxander, yes. And the last show you interviewed with Hemet Mehta, and Hemet Mehta is another person who I enjoy watching their content, as well as, people like Dr. Ben and Arden. Alexander I've seen less often, but I've seen them as well. Arden and Ben I know from previous frequent appearances, and I think they're regulars on the line. I'm pretty sure is one of them. And Hemet Mehta has sort of a thing called the Friendly Atheist, I think. I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. It's quite cool. I like it. I enjoy his program. I used to listen to his podcast. He had a female co-host. I forget her name. But yeah, he had a lot of great content. Katie Montgomery. Oh yes, that's great to hear. Katie Montgomery. I love listening to her. I remember, I don't know, well over a year ago, maybe it was 2 years ago, I was listening to Katie Montgomery have a chat with a theist that was just off base with stuff. So, and she really put them in their place and had a great take on stuff that I found great, because it really just said like where she was so precise. And this is something that I'm not. I ramble. I don't precisely get things out. She said in a couple of sentences, she just put this person right in their place, and it was great. Oh, are you taking calls with Arden? Okay, awesome, Stephanie. That's great. Is she an excellent guitar player? I don't know these things about Katie. I don't think I've ever heard Katie play guitar. Maybe like Katie, like if I could afford to pay somebody to like play guitar and sing my songs for real, I'd love that. But what I've been doing is I've been making I've been making my songs into Suno sung, I guess, like an AI sung music. I play around with different types of styles and arrangements, and I have to play around with the lyrics because it's not what the lyrics say, but how I type the lyrics out. Some of the words I type them out properly as spelled, especially with proper nouns and more scientific terms. The AI will pronounce them wrong, just not recognizing what they are. And so some of them I'll redo after I've heard them mispronounced, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I can usually come up with a couple. And I had one of my very successful ones was the one that I did for our good friend Crystal. Pragmatic Crystal, we had a celebration of PC. Our Pragmatic Crystal, or Crystal as she's known around our wide diaspora of just good people, really. Because like I don't think there's not a particular trait you have to have for entry into what I'll call my YouTube community, which is a much bigger one than just people that are subscribed to my channel. It's usually about being a decent, kind-hearted, well-intentioned person who wants to learn and who wants to be good to humanity. Those seem like sort of traits that they're not based on gender, they're not based on race, they're not based on culture, they're not based on religion, they're based on just who you are at heart as a person. And hopefully people agree with me on that. And if you think there's other attributes I'm missing, or you think that I'm just way off base, let me know, either live or in comments later. I'd love to know what people think about the community. I would imagine certain people that feel attacked by what I say and what other people say, if their ideology includes some sort of place for hate and distrust, they may not like what I have to say. They may find it off-putting. But I do want to make it clear that I'm not upset with people for being religious. I'm not upset with people for believing in what I sometimes will jokingly call an imaginary friend. I don't believe in that. And most of the people that do believe in something think the same about many other people's deities or supernatural worships of this and that character. And so hopefully they understand where I'm coming from in not believing theirs. I think there's this interesting concept where they think like it's okay to believe in a different one. It's not okay to not believe in one at all. And as an atheist, I've been maybe being a little bit too cheeky, but I've been trying to take the piss out of what I think is the grifting, what I think is the bad part of religion, the part that teaches to hate based on arbitrary characteristics, the part that teaches just terrible behavior, that subjugates women, that treats people of I'll say the trans community in particular, but the LGBTQIA plus community, that whole group of wonderful people that just have different sexuality or different gender presentations or different gender feelings. I don't want to misspeak on that. I don't want to put words in the people's mouth or diminish what it is that people are feeling. But I think the best way to put it, I've said this before, other people have said this, if you're you, and in my case, I'm a cis hetero man, I feel like that fits me fairly well. But one thing that's interesting about me, I'll say this in a second, but I'm just going to say, if you feel comfortable in your body and you feel like your gender matches what you were born with, and you find that your sexual attraction is for the opposite gender, that makes you someone like myself. But what does that really mean? What does that change about you as a person? Does that make you some great, wonderful person? It just makes you kind of average. I do know what it's like to feel very uncomfortable in my body, but not due to my gender or my genitalia or my sex characteristics. It's due to the size of my body and that sort of thing. So that's something I've spent a lot of time working on. and thinking about. And it's been difficult. And I'm going to be doing some more writing on that. I'm going to be doing more work in patient advocacy this year. It really gives me what I hope is a great source of empathy for others that are feeling like something isn't right. And in my case, it happens to be a disease. So I don't want to put the stigma, bias, etc., of a disease onto people that are they're just different from other people, because we all are. We're all unique. We're all individuals. We all have different things going on. And so I wanted to point that out. I also wanted to point out that I've written a couple of songs recently that I've tried to see from a female point of view. And I've tried to have female voices speak for the ideas in my head. So I'll specifically ask the Suno voice to be female. And I'll play it both ways sometimes, because you can often get it to just run like multiple passes of what it is. And what I find is that is really extremely helpful to me, to hear it in a female voice sometimes. It helps me hear whether the ideas that I have are like way off base. And I also try to celebrate and include female characters in my AI art. And I find them attractive, but I find them not just attractive, like not in a sexual way necessarily, but also like just a great aesthetic. And I also feel like, because so many people are trying to put down women in general, whether they be any particular version of female. And this is something that Trees is putting up here. I refer to myself as femsexual because I'm attracted to feminine humans, trans women, and cis women alike. I think that's a good point, because I think this is maybe where a lot of people find their problem with the trans community, is that maybe what it is they're afraid that they'll be attracted to someone who they somehow don't see as actually being the gender that they are. And if I understand correctly, that's what being trans is. And I don't know if Stephanie's still here and has anything they want to put in the chat about that, like to clarify if I have that right or not. But in terms of the way I see it, Stephanie is a female, and presents as such. And I think that's the case for a lot of the trans people that I see online, the ones that I interact with. They present as the gender that they identify as. I know there are a few that present with. I don't want to offend people when I say this, but they present with a mixture of characteristics, if you will. And I hope that doesn't offend people for me to say that, but there are some trans people that I think they're not just this binary. They're not just, they're on a spectrum, I guess. I hope that isn't an offensive way to put it, because I know there are people that, for instance, dress in a feminine way. They have a feminine body presentation, but they have a full beard. And, that's a characteristic we tend to associate with males, the beard part. But having, say, breasts and feminine clothing, or what we typically call in our society feminine clothing, throws people off, say. And I understand that it throws people off, because it's not what you're expecting. We expect to see certain things. And some people that are tremendously wonderful people and brave people are being who they are. And who they are is different from who I am. And this is a wonderful way for things to be. And oftentimes I find that it makes me smile often to see that somebody is just being themselves. And I don't want to diminish it, because it often makes me smile in the same way. And I don't mean offense by this. I want to couch that, because I'm very afraid of seeing this in a way that's offensive, but it makes me smile often in the way of like when I see somebody dressed up like in a cosplay outfit and the smile on their face. And I often think that's because a little bit of us inside wants to be a character or a caricature of something. And when you get to dress up and be that, I always loved that as a kid, dressing up as like my heroes or whatever. And it always put a smile on my face. And it puts a smile on my face when I see the smile on the face of someone who is trans, who is able to wear the clothing and present as who they really are and understand who they are. And I just want to say that's wonderful. And I think people are worried that they'll come across that and be attracted to what they're already attracted to, and that they're making a mistake, or that somehow maybe that makes them a different sexual orientation than they think they are, right? And yeah, the reason I wanted to say this, I don't want to say that people who are trans are doing a cosplay, because they're not. They're just being themselves. But when I think of like seeing Ember show up with her beautiful hats and the smile on her face, even if she's often talking about some really dark, terrible stuff, but you see there's a new spark of life watching Ember. And I bring up Ember particularly because she's a person who I saw with a different presentation before, right? And so like I'd like that to be something that people can see as a wonderful, wonderful thing. And here, Stephanie, who has always great insights here, and I do appreciate that you're here, Stephanie. You're here. I do not understand gender and sex, but I do feel both as a quite binary woman. I transitioned 28 years ago now. How terribly strange it all is. Yeah, and Stephanie, I think is a great voice in this community, in particularly because Stephanie's been at this for a long time and been through the ups and the downs. And I think we're in a down because people are taking, and just because people are a small minority of people doesn't mean they're our punching bag for our society. They're not people that should be looked down upon. And I certainly grew up being taught that it was weird. I grew up being taught that it was strange. But I also grew up being taught that it's fine. They're just people. It made people laugh. It made people smile. It made people this, that, and the other thing. And I remember when the idea of someone being trans, and I don't conflate the two, but people who were what I guess we'd call cross-dressing people, trans people, gay and lesbian people were just, they're a little bit different. And I thankfully grew up in a family where there wasn't a ton of prejudice against them. There was a lot of curiosity. There's a lot of like finding it a little different. It wasn't what we were used to, but my parents were very, very much accepting and didn't put down people for gender things. And Stephanie says here, like I told my first shrink, it's not about the clothes to me. I should put that up here. And it's not. And then I just wish people would leave us the fuck alone. And I think that's really an important point, especially with the clothes thing. Anyway, Stephanie, I don't want to be bringing ire towards your community, which I hope is also our community, by bringing this up. But I bring it up because people keep talking about it. This morning I looked at some really shitty stuff, and people have so many shitty ideas that they put out there, and when I hear them, it makes me want to scream, makes me want to pull out the hair I don't have anymore. If my camera worked, you could see how bald I am, but I'm bald in my little avatar here too. So okay, Charlie Baker. Okay, I'm gonna post this up here too so people can read it. So there's 510,000 college athletes. He's aware of under 10 who are trans, and they're dominating everything. Yes, like you say, sarcasm included. Yeah, there are, according to Charlie Baker, NCAA president. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, under 10. So, it's not a big piece of the population. But they're an important part because they're people. And like Stephanie says, there's people just leave us the fuck alone. It's not about the clothes. And it's not because, whether I'm wearing not a stitch of clothing or whether I'm wearing clothes that we would consider feminine or clothes that we would consider masculine, and a lot of the clothes I wear are pretty gender neutral. Like when I put on jeans and a t-shirt, who doesn't wear jeans and a t-shirt at some point? I mean, I guess some people don't, but other than the cut of clothing for men and women, and there often is a different cut. That's just how it is. My unfinished journey is here. Welcome. Hello. Anyway, I think the thing is, people are always looking for a punching bag, and I guess I also worry that I'm doing the same thing. Maybe I should take down my songs where I'm punching at flatters who are grifting, who are trying to take people's money to lie to them. Maybe it's unfair of me to use as a punching bag evangelicals who get on and spew hate and demand money, who treat people badly, including my own child who's on the autism spectrum. RuPaul famously said, "We're all born naked, and all the rest is drag." Well, yeah, and RuPaul is definitely very, very successful and very famous person in the. I actually don't know if RuPaul is trans or a drag. I think drag queen was the term I always heard. I don't know if that's right or not. I know they did a show that mentioned drag. I think it was called The Drag Race or something. I could be wrong about that. It's not something I watched a lot of. I don't watch a lot of television now anyway. Watched a ridiculous amount of it as a child. And enjoyed a lot of it. But yeah, my wife and my daughter take over the TV at night and watch shows that they like, which I used to like stuff like that, but I don't. I find the shows they like, it's not that they're badly done. They make me mad now. And I don't know why. He does not consider himself trans. Okay, so RuPaul is a he and just wears clothes that are considered by society to be feminine, I guess. So that I think that's what we call a cross-dressing or dressing in drag. If I've got the terminology wrong, I am apologetic about that because it's important to me to be respectful of what people want in terms of words, because words are important. Words can hurt and they can help and they can make us feel good. And being supportive and nice isn't that hard to do. That's my thing this year. So I did a community post where I posted a small, very short essay I wrote about that, about how I've been feeling. And I'm going to bring this up because I started the show talking about the new year and what's coming. So for me, New Year is going to involve having a new job. It's going to involve me looking after my health a little bit more because I have been accepted conditionally to the bariatric surgery if I do a bunch of things between now and September. And so I'm starting to work on that. I've already started it. I've started a process. I'm finding the process difficult because it's mentally exhausting for me for some reason. And I'll probably start sharing some of that as I go along. So many people know I live in a large body, a very large body. And I am, I'm not comfortable in my body at all the way it is. It's been worse. It's been better at times. And I'm particularly uncomfortable with the fact that my lung is still partially collapsed and it's hard for me to do stuff. And, oh, thank you, Stephanie. I appreciate that. Stephanie is wishing me well. I hope that goes well for you, Al. Stephanie, I appreciate that so much. I hope that it will happen. It's been, people that follow me know that I was very sick for over 3 months. I was off work completely for 3 months. I had a sort of a half month of getting back to work, and I was doing sort of, work was giving me the best jobs they could find for me. But in my current medical condition, it was hard to find the right things to fit. There's a bunch of things going on. I'm not going to get into that. I don't want to talk about my job any further than that, other than I've got the new thing of looking for a different way of working. I've got some other things going on with my my co-authorship on a scientific paper. Again, is going to be interesting. It's been extremely satisfying to have conversations with these other people, many of them much younger than I am, and their enthusiasm, their knowledge, and their thirst for making a difference is extremely inspiring. And I do recommend, I recommend that everyone have a look at who you hang out with. Because like when I was in high school, for instance, like everybody, like all the people I hung out with were like either in my year or a year ahead, a year behind. Like all of my friends were the same, mostly the same background. I had a few friends that were what you might call of other races or cultures, but not very many. It was a very sort of heterogeneous group in terms of race and culture where I grew up. It's somewhat exacerbated by the fact that I was in a French program, which was, I wasn't the first one ever to be involved in it, I don't think, but I was very early on inducted into this program. It was kind of a new thing, and it was most subscribed to by the more educated, the more well-off, and the more white people in our community. And my parents weren't necessarily well off. My mother's well educated. My father is well experienced before he passed, but didn't have a lot of formal education, much like myself. And but they thought it was important that I learn another language, and another national language of my country. But there was a very interesting divergence of cultures in that time, that from what I understand is no longer the case. But when it first came up, the people that signed up were mostly white, middle class, upper middle class people. And I think those terms middle class are not used the same way necessarily in the US. From conversations I've had with Vandy lead me to believe that the terms I use for like being a working class, middle class, whatever is not necessarily words that are used the same way. Oh, Stephanie sees somebody over in Gather. I don't know if you see me in Gather, because I don't know if I'm there, but maybe somebody's there. My unfinished journey is trying to see if I understand what I think might be Spanish. ¿Qué idioma buscas? Because I'm confused. I am very confused. Anyway, it's mostly because I don't speak Spanish. I know how to say one phrase in Italian. Oh, you see me there. Oh my God. Okay, so Gather looks like grapes, right? Oh, here you are. I see you here. Look at you. Okay, I can chat with you here. Hi. Yeah, so, okay, I didn't realize. Okay, what language do you want to learn? You know what, my unfinished journey, I speak English and French with some acuity. And I don't know if I want to learn any more languages. I think I'd be well served by learning computer programming languages, because my son is extremely interested in computer programming, and I'd love to help him with that. I would like to learn German, largely because it's the language of my direct ancestors on both sides of my family, and it's something that my grandmother grew up speaking a version of. My grandmother was Mennonite, so she spoke a weird sort of dialect of German. She called it Viennese Dutch, but yeah, it was a German type language. There's some. It has nothing to do with Dutch. It's a misunderstanding about what Deutsch is, which is Deutsch is German for Germany, or German. Deutschland is Germany. I would like to learn German only because, being a language of my ancestors, I like to understand a little bit about it. My wife is also half German. I was talking to my father-in-law when we were away, and he mentioned that he doesn't read in German anymore because he was reading a book. I was like, Do you still read in German, or do you just read in English?" He's like, "I don't even remember how to read German." He spent 3/4 of his life in Canada speaking English. And so even though he lived to adulthood in Germany and spoke German in Germany his entire growing up time, and he speaks German to his German relatives that are still overseas, he finds it difficult. He doesn't. He finds himself being tripped up by that, and he speaks English very well, albeit with an accent. But he has no trouble communicating in English whatsoever. But I wish that I had learned German. My sister learned a bit. I can say Auf Wiedersehen, Dankeschön, Bitte schön, and that's about it. I can also say Herr and Frau, because I remember those things. Because the German teacher at my school, who was not my teacher, went by Herr, and his last name. I won't dox myself too much by giving the name of someone I was at my school, but there it is. And Stephanie's probably trying to say hi back to me. No, that's Discord. And she says, "Howdy." Yeah, I won't say too much about this conversation. I'm trying to type and think at the same time. It doesn't work well, right? Okay, so let me get back to where is this? StreamYard. Here we go. So I wish I had learned that. My mother actually studied Latin at school and was my mother was a teacher. She was a language and reading specialist. And my father was a truck driver and a construction person. And I'm not the worst communicator in the world. I'm learning to be a better communicator. And I really love coming on YouTube because it gives me a chance to communicate my thoughts and ideas. And I love writing. And I've been loving writing songs. So I'm going to say a new song that will be coming out from me, hopefully this week. And I wouldn't have if it weren't for my new career situation. But I have written a song in support of women in what I see as being a extremely misguided attack on women's rights and bodily autonomy that I think actually affects all of us. In the U.S., it's in the U.S., and even though I don't live in the U.S., I think it affects everybody because it when something becomes the norm by force, it can take over what people think is ideal, and I think we need to re-examine stuff like that. So I've written a song, and I mentioned about using female voices to say some of my ideas. I don't know if that's because there's any sort of feminine part of my mindset. I'm not sure that there is. I often find I disagree with some feminine minds on some things, but I don't even think there is such a thing. I think we all have the male and female minds aren't really a thing. I think those feelings about who you are don't come into play for a lot of things, except by what we force on people. I've often said, when I'm in my work truck, I'm like, if you show me how to drive this truck with your genitalia, I probably want to see the movie because it sounds interesting, but holy fuck, that's not how it's done at all. Gender does not, gender and sex and all that stuff does not really come into most people's day-to-day jobs. For those that work in the sex industry, I understand it's probably a much bigger deal, and you're playing to people's interests. And those are, as I've said before, they're really important jobs. People need and want those jobs done, and they're willing to pay for them. And people that work in those industries should be well treated and respected in society, rather than made punching bags, which a lot of people are. That's something that I try to fight back against as someone living in a larger body. Large body people are often used as punching bags and jokes, the butts of jokes and whatnot, and treated poorly and misrepresented. And so I would like, to not have either tokenism type stuff happening. I'd like characters to be shown who they are, where they are, and not left out or only included when they're shown a certain way. And I think that should apply to everyone. So I've written a song that I hope people will enjoy and appreciate. It's not a happy song. It's a song about the loss of abortion rights in the USA, and it's something I'm worried will spread other places. As politicians around the world, including in my country, see what happens in the U.S. as a bellwether for which direction they should go in, and I don't think that's the way things ought to go. I'm really upset with that that attitude. I'm really upset with the way people are talking in my country. And I'll talk about politics for just a minute here, because I think we don't know where we're going in my country exactly, because our prime minister stepped down yesterday. I think they picked that day specifically to be the first business day back for the majority of the country, even though people work all through the holidays, of course, but many people are off. Kids are off school, all that sort of stuff for 2 weeks in our country, mostly ending this past Sunday would have been the last day of the holiday break for many people. And yesterday was the first day back to work. So it was not surprising to see that Prime Minister Trudeau stepped down. He made a big long speech and all this shit. And I don't know what will happen. There'll be another election, obviously. That's something that will happen no matter what. And the U.S. has had an election a few months back, I guess 2 months ago, really. And yesterday, the final paperwork was done for the new U.S. president to come in. That's Donald Trump. If you don't know that, I don't know where you've been living, but I'd like to visit that rock. It sounds great. But yeah, Donald Trump has been put back in as a president in the USA. Trudeau stepped down as the labor leader. Not, yeah, sorry. You're right, Stephanie. Yeah, and we don't really call it labor. We call it the Liberal Party, but yeah, I know what you're saying. Yeah, so he'll be the prime minister going forward, but they're going to get a new leader. But he's not leaving the prime minister's seat vacant, but it triggers the process. Yeah, the prorogation of Parliament, that's happened before. It's a thing that we seem to do here in Canada a lot, and if I remember correctly, it just kind of like puts everything on pause and makes sure not a fucking thing happens for a while. I think the reason for that is because I personally think the reason for that is so that he doesn't end up with more shit that looks bad for him. And I think he was riding high on the mentality that people had during the COVID pandemic, where we needed like just, a leader that would talk to people and say platitudes people wanted to hear. He was not half bad at that for the first few months. It got really tired after a while. I don't think he has the backing of most of the country. He doesn't have the backing of his cabinet. And the most important minister in his cabinet was fired / quit. But she resigned when she was told she was being moved out of one position and being put in another one. That was a while. Trying to put the Liberals in a position to hang on, but that seems like a long shot. Yeah, it is a long shot, Stephanie. It's definitely a long shot. And our Conservative Party, so our Liberals are, for people that don't know Canada, Canada is a bit of a small country. We're a big player politically worldwide only because we're next door neighbors to the U.S. and we have a long history of working with Britain. And so we kind of come to the table as friends. But we don't have a lot of people here, and we have a lot of resources, and we have some clout that way. So people don't necessarily know about our politics. Our politics follows the British Parliament system fairly closely. It's not identical. But we have our Liberal Party is, for American listeners, would be a lot like your Democrats, and our Conservative Party would be a lot like your Republicans in ideology on a lot of things. The main idea being that the Conservatives want to conserve, like basically, um, one of the names our Conservative Party had previous to being the Conservatives was the Progressive Conservatives, the PC Party. And progressive conservatives were meant to be conservative in that we'd spend no money but move society ahead into a modern era. So being socially progressive to some degree, but not too much, you know. So they still had to appeal to people that want to keep things like they were 800 years ago. And then you've got the group of people who are the liberals, who tend to be more willing to spend money. You all and Donald Trump are the only ones to have despoiled the Capitol since 1789. Yeah, I know we burnt down. Yeah, and technically, Stephanie, it was the British, not the Canadians, but the what Canadians are now were the British back then. So, yes, we burnt down the White House. And that war was early in the 19th century, I think. Yeah, since 1789. Yeah, and there you go, Stephanie. Well said there. So, when it comes to politics, what I want and what I get, the War of 1812. That's the one I'm thinking of. Yes, the War of 1812. There were a number of skirmishes over the border between Canada and the U.S. over a number of years from the Declaration of Independence forward. And I think Americans know that history better than Canadians do, because in Canada we tend to, in our history, we study a lot more about our internal wars over the land. And there's been a push to learn more about Indigenous cultures recently. So that's at least in there. I see that from what my kids are working on. And when I was a kid, it was brought up, but it was really just nothing about the disputes or the treaties. It was all about this is the type of home people lived in back in those eras, and this is the type of tools they made, and these are the types of religions they might have had, and these are the types of stories they told, and stuff like that. And that, you know, there was like a minor mention that like there were some wars and skirmishes over territory, and treaties were signed. And now there's a lot more admitting of you know, it really would fall into the category of mass genocide, I think. So I'd like to, you know, move away from politics, but just say that our current conservative leader is a guy named Pierre Poilievre, and he is a person who says, I listened to some of his stuff over the break, and because I heard people talking about him and saying what they don't like about him, and I'm going to say what I don't like about him. I don't like that he is constantly harping on things that don't matter as ways to get himself elected. So he's very anti-woke, whatever the fuck that means. And he hates the fact that there are any DEI, anything, hires or whatever. And he's trying to push buttons that I think Trump has pushed successfully. I hope it doesn't work in Canadian society. I really hope that type of rhetoric doesn't work. But I think there's enough people that agree that there might be this sort of silent push to be like, yeah, we kind of want everything to go back to being super white and super bland and super not tolerant. There's a pushback against immigration policies that let people in from certain types of places but not others. And I hear that rhetoric out of the American politicians. I hear that rhetoric out of a lot of people, and it pisses me off to no end. That may not be what people want to hear from me. I don't usually talk about Canadian politics, but I think it's possible to make good fiscal decisions and be socially aware and not disparage people. I think all of those things are totally doable. It makes me really upset and sad to see this idea that the way to rally people together is to put down small groups of great humans, whoever they might be. That's a shitty way to do it. The way I think of it is, you know, there's There's a lot of things that humans need in their lives, but they're pretty simple things. You know, we need food and water, and people live in climates like mine, and certainly Stephanie lives in New England, so she knows very well that you can't necessarily be naked year round. In Maine, or lots of parts of the U.S. are like that. And societally, we don't accept constant nudity generally in North America, except in very small pockets. People have colonies of whatever they do, but you're going to want to do that in a tropical area. Oh yeah, we got to build that wall. Trees. I'm going to put this up there. I know you're kind of half joking, tongue in cheek here, but if a hot civil war happens down here, Canada better get ready for the American immigrant caravans. Build that wall. Yeah, and the spread of ideas in the U.S. is it's interesting, and it's interesting how certain states think differently, certain types of regions think differently. It doesn't make sense, but I feel like I'm rambling a little bit on this. So I'm going to move away from politics, and I'm just going to say that I really hope that people will see that you can make decent fiscal decisions that are good for all people without throwing groups under the bus. And it's okay. It's okay for big businesses and rich people to pay their fair share of taxes. It's not a fucking problem. And if you're expecting rich people to take up the slack for what government and society would usually do for people, and you think they're just going to build, parks and recreation facilities and just a whole bunch of like free roads to drive on, and hospitals and schools and stuff. If you're expecting large corporations to do that for free, get your fucking brain back in gear. Corporations do things to make a profit. Governments do things for people because they're run by the people for the people. They shouldn't be run to make a profit. Business people don't belong in government. They belong in businesses. Businesses are meant to be greedy. They're meant to conserve profits and make as many of them as possible. Governments are meant to provide infrastructure and other things that are needed by society to society with society's own funds. When government builds a road, those dollars came from working people. And if you drive down a road in any country around the world and it was paved by the government, even if they hired a private company to do it, that's socialism. You're driving on a socialist road. If you're driving on a toll road that's owned by a corporation, that's a capitalist road. And we have one of those here, but it was built by government dollars. People's dollars built it. One government here sold it to a corporation, and it's been bought and sold a couple of times since then. But let me tell you something. When you're driving on the road, you're a socialist. In Canada, if you go to the hospital, you're a socialist. If you send your kids to school, public school, you're a socialist. Socialism isn't bad. Looking after society isn't bad. Treating people with respect and dignity, even if they're not in a position to be a traditional worker, isn't bad. Not everyone in society is meant to be at work toiling all day for the good of corporations, and governments need to stop giving breaks en masse to corporations for this, that, and the other reason that's not good for the economy. Corporations will not do well if that happens. If you replace all the working people in the world with some sort of robot, with some sort of AI to govern everything, great. Who's going to buy your goods? There's a bunch of billionaires in the world. I guess they could exchange dollars back and forth or whatever. But if you don't have people with funds in their pockets ready to spend on stuff, corporations go bankrupt in a little while. It takes a while to realize that you rely on people to make your business work, especially if you're business to business. I say this all the time. I'm not an economist, but I understand the basics of it. If nobody's buying anything, nobody's making any profits. And if people have no money, they only have a couple of options. They either make their own shit from scratch, like we used to do, or they, trade with each other for the stuff that other people know how to do and cut corporations out of it and government out of it too. Do you know how much sales tax you make if I trade my carpentry skills for a dozen eggs, for instance, from the chicken farmer? Government makes no tax dollars. Corporations make fuck all. The big egg company doesn't make fuck all. The grocery store doesn't make fuck all. You want to go back to that? If people will find a way to survive. It might not be good. It might not be great. But people will find a way to survive. But if you stop paying people a decent wage to live their lives, and they stop buying food, they stop buying cars, and they stop buying bicycles, especially those e-bikes that everybody's getting. But if they stop buying clothing and food at Walmart and all the places that sell that, if they stop buying toasters, if they stop buying washing machines, if they stop buying houses, if they stop buying anything, you name it, the more stuff we stop buying, the greater a halt the economy grinds to. And the rich people will have a lot of money, but they won't have anybody to work for them because everybody will be dead and bankrupt and nobody will have a job. It's not a society I want to move towards. I don't want to move to a society where corporations run governments because they have no business running a government. A government should be run to break even. It should take in the dollars it absolutely needs to support society and manage it well. And everything else should stay back in the pockets of consumers and taxpayers so that they can do the best they can for their families. And if you're a single person, you're a family too. You fit right into everything. You're still a wonderful person. You don't need to be a giant family to count. You don't have to be a nuclear family to count. You don't have to be a traditional, whatever the fuck that means, family to count. People fucking count. Humans are humans. And billionaires, you count too. You're people. Make sure you remember that. If we take away your money, and I'm not saying we're taking away your money, but if we take away your money, are you that fucking special? Ask yourself that. If you're a billionaire and you listen to my program, and I sure hope you do. If you're a billionaire and you listen to my program and all your money was gone, are you that fucking special? Would you do a better job of running things than anybody else if you didn't already have the power of the money? Think about that. Think about what skills you actually have. Skills are important. Hey, Majestic Beck. Special like me. I'm sorry, Majestic. If you're the billionaire that listens to my program, I'm sorry if I offended you. Anyway. I see your emote there. And I never know what this one means. Is this the exasperated one, special like me? Yeah, working class put food on the table for the billionaires. They do it in multiple ways. Wish money. Look, I tell you what. Cash is great. Crypto is like this weird fucking thing people are doing. I guess it's great too. I don't want to put down crypto. I'm gonna say this. I hope this comes across well. This is important for me to say. We need to look after each other. Because if we don't look after each other, nobody else will. So, Majestic Beck. Yes, good point. Good point. I have both Becks on my show in the same day. That's pretty fucking awesome. It's not the first time I've seen both Becks in the same show. I don't know if What the Beck's still here, but Majestic P Beck and What the Beck have both been here in the same stream. I don't see that every day of the week. Probably mostly because I've been a really bad community member and I haven't been participating enough. And when I'm working, I usually don't say a lot. I'll say hi sometimes if I'm at a stop, but usually I just listen. And you don't know I'm there listening too much. Anyway, I start wrapping the show up. It's let's have more. Yeah, more text the better. Here we go. Hey, Phantom X11. Oi, I don't know what language that is. Is that Australian? Is Oi Australian? I'm really not sure. Anyway, here's how I'm gonna wrap up the show. I'm gonna say critical thinking is important. The scientific method is important, but the scientific method isn't just this little box that flirts think of. Flirts need to find something different to do with their lives, and they need to stop grifting. And evangelical preachers that are spreading hate and stealing money need to fucking stop. And everybody needs to go and subscribe to my channel so that I can get 169 subscribers and have the 69 special, where I will have guests. And I don't know when I'm going to do it, but I will. When I do it, I will schedule it. I'll pick a night or a day or a time when I can have my favorite friends and people that want to participate hang out with me and do a little panel, and we'll chat about whatever. We might even talk about 69ing. I don't know. I thought that would be a good conversation to have, is what people actually think about 69ing, because I've heard people talk about it lots of times. I've seen people take pictures of it and shoot movies of it and stuff, but it just seems like a hassle. But you know what? Maybe I just don't do it right. Anyway, we could get into a 69 conversation. We also talk about years that ended in 69. And we could talk about 69 favorite reasons to hang out with Al Trucker. I don't know. We'll come up with a reason. Maybe we'll see if we can get 69 people watching at the same time. I got 9 people watching. If I had 6 more. No, that's not right. If I get 6 more subs, I'll have 169. I can do the special. And if I had 60 more people watching, I'd have 69 people watching, and that would be cool. 1169 was a good year. It was definitely better than 1066. I've got to look up the 1066 thing again, because I'm not going to talk about it now, because I know a bunch of weird shit happened back then. And one of the reasons I know that is because there was a book in my family's cottage. 1069. 1069 was way better than 1066. Things got better. Yeah, that was only 3 years later, but you know what? A couple of years make a difference, right? Difficult to peak simultaneously, sequentially easy. Yeah, I know. I guess that's the thing. My unfinished journey. You want to, yeah, like, I don't know. I'm not saying I've never had. I would say I've had lots of simultaneous experiences, but they have not been in that position. I'm going to say that. I think I've said too much. But yeah, I think there's a lot of there's a lot of attention that needs to be paid to your partner. And sometimes taking turns with paying attention is good. The death of Edward the Confession, 66. Okay, 1066. So you know what? You know what we'll do? If I have the 169 special, we'll spend at least 5 minutes talking about 1066. And I will do my research so that I can say some really interesting things about 1066 and bring us back in time to a simpler time when shit happened and people had to reorganize shit, right? The confession and the confessor. Yeah. And you know what? Every time I think about anything like prior to 1800, I always start thinking about the Blackadder series. And I know that wasn't. I don't think 1066 was in there. It was a little bit later. But yeah, the Blackadder, like Blackadder, the second and the third. I love those. The one about the First World War was cool too. But the one I loved the most was the. I think the second and the third were my favorites. But yeah, Blackadder with Rowan Atkinson and a bunch of other amazing actors. Just fantastic. I love that. The Norman invasion. Yeah, when Norman Lear hit television. Is that what you're talking about, Phantom? Or is when the Normans invaded, probably, right? I'm gonna do some history buffing so that I can remember what the fuck was going on in 1066. But yeah, my family on my mother's side has property in New Brunswick. We went there We went to New Brunswick when I was a kid, which I spent a lot of time in New Brunswick. One of the books we had was called 1066 and all that. And I read some of it back then. And it was so many years ago. I think I was about 11. Anyway, I don't remember it well. And I don't think I probably read it that well at 11. But yeah, I'll have to check. I don't think I can get to that book because I'd have to drive down to New Brunswick to find it and see if somebody kept it. Way better than Mr. Bean. So, Stephanie, I will say that I'm a big Mr. Bean fan. But they're extremely different styles of comedy. And I've loved Mr. Bean since childhood. Rowan Atkinson, just as a person, as a performer, I've always found very watchable, funny, but also like, you know, a lot of range, and his physical comedy and his Mr. Bean character is one I find extremely endearing, but not everybody's into it. But yeah, I've always loved Mr. Bean. Some of it is because he's such a terrible person, and yet is kind of endearing at the same time. So yeah, it's weird. The Bronze Age collabs. Yes, if I pass 1177. You know what? If at my current rate, considering I missed both the 69 sub and the 100 sub special, changing it to the 169 sub special seems like the perfect thing. But if I all of a sudden become extremely popular, and please feel free to sub and make me extremely popular, because like I might need to monetize this and make money. Love accent. Fry and Laurie just made Blackout. Yeah, you know what? You're right. Fry and Laurie were both. Yeah, no, you're right. It was so fucking funny. The entire cast of all of the Blackadder things were great, and particularly so. Yeah, Fry and Laurie added so much to it, and Rowan Atkinson played his part really, really well. The jokes were multi-level jokes, and I just loved it. I loved it as a kid. I love it even more when I see it again now, because I think my high school age self watching Blackadder for the first time got like 60% of what was going on, and my adult self gets even more out of it. And if I'd watched it like at the age of 8 or something, I've gotten like 3% of it. But yeah, no, the levels that it works on, and the talent of the people involved is just amazing. So yeah, if anybody is not familiar with Blackadder, Rowan Atkinson, Fry and Laurie, which is Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie, just amazing actors that brought, and comics who brought so much. And a lot of people know these people in other things they've been in. Tom Baker, One Show with Baker is a blind pile. Oh, holy shit. Oh, you have a woman's hands, my lord. Yeah, there's so many. You know what? Fuck. Oh, Stephanie, I'm gonna have to find these somewhere. I don't know if they're streaming. One of the channels or streaming services we have here is called BritBox. Anyway, I said I would wrap this up 10 minutes ago. And so here we are. I'm going to wrap it up. Here's what I'm going to say for the final words. Please find a way to be kind and empathetic to your fellow humans, even if they're billionaires. But also remember that the economy as it stands, if you want a capitalist economy, you can't capitalize on broke people. That's seen on YouTube. The scenes on YouTube. Okay. I'll have to look that up because there's no way I can afford another streaming service. I'm thinking about canceling more of them. I think we have 2 still going in the house that are constantly being watched by the family, and I don't want to take them away from them. But I do want to cut down the costs. So I don't know. I'll have to figure all that out. I'm working on it. But I'll keep people up to date. When I'm back on the road, there'll be less streaming from Al. But in the meantime, I plan to get out here and do something. And if people are enjoying this, please like and subscribe, or like and subscribe. Also, since since this is the first time I'm really talking about the 169 sub special, if 1066 isn't what you want to hear about, and 69ing isn't what you want to hear about, put in topics that you wish Al Trucker would cover with people that he could get to come on the show. And there's a bunch of people I think I could get to come on the show. And I've already had a couple of people agree that they will show up if I can tell them when, where, and how. And so I'll be reaching out to a few people. And I'm also going to say, hey, if you're a person that thinks like you want to be on that stream, or you want to come and talk to me about your special life that you have, because everybody's special. I'm thinking of doing some interviews with community members. I think I get a lot out of talking to people in the side chats. I think sometimes getting people on screen, and you can be an avatar like this. I mean, the way things are working with my camera, I don't think I'm ever going to be shown on camera again. But yeah, I'm gonna start working on putting this one together. So thank you for coming. Yes, share, like, and subscribe. Thank you, Stephanie. This is what I'm trying to say. Share, like, and subscribe. So, and also, I'm gonna shill again for my own music. I now have an anti-apologist playlist. I have an anti-flirf playlist, and I think I have some fun songs on there. And now that I'm not the one singing, they're somewhat listenable. I think they're pretty good. And I have a couple that are not either. So if you just look under videos, you'll see that I have a bunch of them. If they're short, like if they're about 4 or 5 minutes long or less, they're probably a song. I haven't made a lot of short videos. As you can see, my loquaciousness takes over every damn time. Thank you, Top. Thank you, Stephanie. My Unfinished Journey. If I scroll back, I can see everybody. Majestic Beck was here. What the Beck was here. Phantom was here. Trees was here. How many more people came? I said on my Unfinished Journey already. A lot of people participated here. It's been great. It's been great. And we found out about, Cosmic Kyle was here, which was awesome. And I can't remember who else was here. Yeah, there's What the Beck. Jess was here. Holly was here before she had to go to bed. And you know what? There were times when we had more people than that watching. So maybe some people just weren't chatting. But I love the fact that you all come. And thank you, Top, for your closing message. This is the hook. Thank you for your time, Al. Bye, everyone. Take care. So Al's now going to say, bye, everyone. Take care. Thank you so much. And thank you for coming back after my ridiculous other stream got cut off by my crazy life. Thanks.